You're welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. I'm your host, Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers. We're starting off with the market as of 6 a.m. this morning. You're welcome back. Once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Today, we're going to be gauging the reactions on the removal of fuel subsidy, which is slated to take effect from June 2022. Now, from 2006 to 2018, fuel subsidy has gulped about 10 trillion naira. And in 2019 and 2020, about 3 trillion naira was spent on subsidies, meaning that Nigeria has spent over $30 billion on fuel subsidies over the past 16 years. Now, let's break it down. Let's see how much the government has spent in the past 4 years. Now, during the 4 years, the federal government has spent 2.93 trillion naira on fuel subsidies, and it is as follows. So in 2016, the federal government spent 563.3 billion naira. In 2017, it spent 144.53 billion naira. 2018, 730 billion naira. And in 2019, it spent 1.5 trillion naira. Well, as the government prepares to remove fuel subsidy in June of next year, some Nigerians feel negatively about the fuel subsidy removal. Now, in order to cushion the blow of subsidy removal, the government is planning a transport palliative in form of 5,000 naira cash handouts to 40 million poor Nigerians. Now, the transport palliative is supposed to last for a period of 6 months to 1 year and may cost the Nigerian government 2.4 trillion naira. In order to actually get this done. Now, this is 81.71% above the average annual subsidy payment from 2016 down to 2019. Now, we have a report that we're going to be taking a look at, and it's basically Nigerians who are talking about the way that they feel about the fuel subsidy removal. But before we get into that, let me introduce my guest. So joining me to gauge the reactions of Nigerians towards subsidy removal is communications political strategist Desmond Joyce Natu. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Chairman.
Great to have you. Now, before I ask you what your own personal thoughts are on the fuel subsidy removal, let's take a look at what Nigerians had to say.
I'm of the opinion that at this point of time, the government shouldn't even think of increasing fuel because it's going to impoverish the populace and it's going to harden the situation the more. Ordinarily, I'm of the opinion that the government is supposed to think from where they are taking cab and think outside the box. This is not the time to increase pump price. This is not the time. In fact, the panic buy, the people that are holding the DPR and other regulatory agencies that are saddled with it as well is supposed to step up and arrest people that are holding and causing more troubles to the Nigerians.
Bringing another issue of a subsidy remover is just like another way of them to steal money from this government. How will you say that you are going to be sharing 20,000 or 5,000 naira in replacement of the fuel subsidy? It's another way of them to eat our money now. You understand me? As I am now, if I have my way, to leave this country, I will just leave this country.
I don't know how many times we have fuel subsidy. 2016, fuel subsidy, they increased them. We didn't feel any impact. Non-Nigeria life has been better since then. Then removing it to now, that is it 300 and something. Well, I think it's just to bring us another suffering. When they share palliative, nobody receive. Talk less of 5,000 to poor masses. Are we not see the poor masses that is still suffering it? I don't think there's anything they will give to Nigeria. If it's better they should even leave it like that. No subsidy. We should continue like this. We are suffering now already.
To remove fuel subsidy is not the problem of Nigeria. There are a lot of Nigeria that have no job. Nothing is working in this country. So the best thing for them to let them create job opportunity. For example, there are a lot of things they're supposed to do to create jobs. Look at roads, everywhere dirty. In every state, if you employ, when we are growing, we saw these roadside workers. You employ those type of people, they'll be working. Now, if you go to our side now, like from Edo, kidnappers, nobody is going to farm. Subsidy is not the issue to reduce poverty alleviation. Let people go about themselves and work for themselves. But these people, herdsmen and whatsoever, they have started terrorizing in our area and things are not working. It's not subsidy is the problem of Nigeria.
All right, there you have it. That is the response coming from a few Nigerians out there. Now, let's take a look at this really well. Now, removing fuel subsidy, it's a fact. It's going to actually save Nigeria a lot of money in order for them to do this. That's the federal government itself. If you take out electricity subsidy, it saves Nigeria over about $2 billion yearly, which is money that can actually go to other sectors. And the same thing applies to the removal of fuel subsidy. As I said earlier on, so far, trillions have actually been spent. And if fuel subsidy is removed from the current government expenditure, then it actually frees up about 1 trillion naira yearly for Nigerians. And there are quite a few other sectors that are currently suffering because, you know, there's a lack of money within the budget. Now, for example, the educational sector, the medical sector, this is all other sectors that could actually have or benefit from freeing up that amount of money. But the problem here is the simple fact that with the 5,000 naira transport palliative, it's going to take actually double of what was originally spent, which is where a lot of Nigerians are actually having issues with. Now, but taking a look at our current GDP, taking a look at the inflation rates that we're currently facing, which is currently 15.99%, is this really the right time to introduce fuel subsidy removal?
I mean, it's always been a question of the right time, right, with this administration. Before they came into power, they said anybody saying they're paying fuel subsidy is a scam or is corruption. I mean, the president said it himself before he took power. And he said his first agenda, why in power, if elected president, would be to remove the fuel subsidy. We've seen hikes over the years, and they still insist that they've been paying subsidies. So the question is always about when is the right time to remove these subsidies, because the economy keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and things keep getting worse for Nigerians. So saying that you're going to remove subsidy in the midst of economic, what will I call it, chaos, where, you know, the price of food is skyrocketing. There are so many, you know, indices that are negative when it comes to our economy. And then you're freeing up this money. Let's say you're freeing up the money, and then you want to give it to Nigerians. Which Nigerians? Because there is a problem too with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs on how they collect their poor household data. Where do they get these data from? You know, there have been controversies because every single palliative, should I say, program that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs have handled have resulted into a scandal. You don't need to look further than the End SARS, you know, protests that resulted into the palliative hunting, you know, that went on across the countries. It was a disgrace. It was an international disgrace, which showed that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs was even incapable of tracking the palliatives that they disbursed. So if they're incapable of tracking palliatives, why are they giving more palliatives? That means they have absolutely no trust with the people. And then it is also the issue of, you know, governing with the consent of the people. That's what democracy is. Who did they consult before deciding they want to give Nigerians 5,000 naira? From the video you played, most Nigerians are against this. If you go to Facebook, social media platforms, I've not seen one person that is in support of remove subsidy, you know, increase the price of fuel to about 350 to 400 naira, and then start paying people 5,000 naira. Who asked for it? I know I did not. I've not seen anybody that asked for that. Nobody has approached me for any survey that say, would you rather? You know, nobody has done this. So you are leading without the consent of the people you claim to be leading. So I don't know. That also brings the question of democracy. It brings the question of, I've told you about accountability with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, who are going to be handing out these palliatives. I listened to the Minister of Finance. And she was saying, she was saying it's going to be electronically, they're going to use e-wallets. And, you know, these things are just, I don't want to say funny, but this is a wallet that was pulled down from
Google Play Store. And,
because of the ratings, it was almost zero.
But as it stands, they've basically upgraded the system itself, and it's currently still out there on the Google Play Store.
But it is still about data. How did they get the data of almost 7 million poor households, 40 million poor Nigerians? How did they collect this data? And when you also look at, you know, the demographics and how they divide the states, you see that it tends to favor one side, one region of the country, which also is a dividing factor. So why do this at all? Why do it at all?
But the argument with fuel subsidy itself, it actually states that even for the poorer Nigerians out there, it's not really beneficial to even them.
It is not.
So where do you find a balance between the two? Because keeping fuel subsidies is still going to be a problem for the federal government, but at the same time, taking it out is going to also be a problem for the Nigerian populace.
We are going to remove it eventually. I don't think this is the right time. No Nigerian feel it is the right time. Don't forget to. I've told you about the prices of fuel. Everything has almost doubled in price. Nigerians make joke on how, you know, Titus sardine has become the new gold. These are jokes, but they are realities. When you go to the market, you will see that these things are realities. Things that you could easily afford are, you know, getting to the level of luxury. And you see that your people are going through this. And don't forget to, every single economic intervention has always led us to a recession. You can go and check it yourself. So to me, I just feel they should leave economics alone. Just micromanage until, you know, you hand it over to people who are better managers, but please leave the subsidy issue alone, because I feel instinctively, and with precedences of how they have boggled every single social intervention, I feel they are going to mess this thing up, and they should just let it be for a better, competent administration to handle.
So you've basically lost trust.
No, completely. And it's not just me. You played the video of most Nigerians, you know, airing their minds. And I've told you, go on social media and check. Nobody have trust in this administration, especially when you say you are handing something over to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. They just start claiming that it's going to be looted. Once you mention humanitarian affairs, and it is also sad, because I believe this ministry was created with good intentions, that it should, you know, be a succor to some of the challenges that Nigerians will be facing. But this same ministry that was created with good intentions has become one of the most controversial ministries in the country, because we see our minister, she goes to the markets. There was a time she said she was distributing during the COVID era, distributing 5,000 naira. You don't see up to 100 women. And then they come and say, this week we distribute. They call figures that are mind-boggling. And then you start wondering, this tiny pockets, numbers of women that I see in these places that result into billions. There is no accountability. There is no transparency. There is no tracking. There is no data for us to even go and track and say, this is this. So if you cannot provide these indices for tracking what you're doing, then just leave it alone.
All right, so as we're gauging reactions today, there have been a couple of reactions so far. NLC is against the removal of fuel subsidy because they feel that it will make life harder for the Nigerian populace. The same thing with the TUC, but interestingly enough, even the Senate has had something to say about it so far. And according to the chairman of the Finance Committee, that is Mr. Senator Olamilekan Adeola, he actually described it as a rumor. According to him, it was a rumor to him. Yeah. And he talked about it, not being properly proposed to the Senate. Because as it stands, the current 2022 budget that is being considered, actually carries a segment for fuel subsidy.
Yeah.
And then there's still a question as to how, you know, the funds for this dispersal is actually going to be generated. Exactly. So now there is some sort of disconnect between the Ministry of Finance and the information that was given to the Senate. Mm-hmm. Now, looking at that, does it really mean that the thought or, you know, the transport palliative that is being considered right now mm-hmm. or is being planned for right now was more of an afterthought than something that was well thought out and properly planned?
I believe it's an afterthought. And not every single, but most of the interventions that you see, they are not well thought out. They're an afterthought. And I spoke about, you know, leading with the consent of the led. Mm-hmm. The legislators, the senators, they are our representatives. So even if you do not come to me as NATO and ask me, what do you think? You can ask my senator. You can ask, you know, the person representing me in the House of Assembly. They can speak for me. So if they're hearing this and they're thinking it is a rumor, then what am I supposed to think? Mm-hmm. I that do not have the power to actually negotiate with government. So there is a disconnect. There is, you know, lack of proper communication. They are not consenting. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not getting the consent of the people before these policies are being rolled out. Mm-hmm. And then the issue too of corruption. Mm-hmm. If you've already budgeted subsidy from January to December, the entire fiscal year mm-hmm. carries subsidy, and you are saying you are going to remove it in June, then what about the other 6 months? What is going to happen if these monies are already disbursed? Are they going to be returned back to the Ministry of Finance? What is going to happen? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just haphazard, mm-hmm. and that's why I said you should leave it alone mm-hmm. because I have no single, you know, doubt in my mind mm-hmm. that it is going to turn to a big mess with the removal, with the intervention, with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. And the entire chain is broken. Mm-hmm. There is no trust from any of the sectors. Mm-hmm. It is the NFC, the NNPC, the Finance Ministry, the Humanitarian, and every other ministry that have to do with this entire subsidy thing, including the presidency, who has been flip-flopping over the years, mm-hmm. whether to remove or not to remove. Mm-hmm. So we do not have sincerity of purpose. Mm-hmm. Maybe they mean well, but they do not have the competency.
All right, so let's take a look at some of the social media reactions that we have out there. We're going to be picking one out of the 3 that we have today. And this one is actually states, food will be a luxury for most Nigerians next year. The food crisis of 2020 will be a joke. Add that to the price hikes that will come with the removal of fuel subsidy. Tighten your seatbelts. President Buhari is... all right, we're just going to stop on that particular segment there, or that particular sentence. Yes, taking a look at what he just said now and comparing it, or also, you know, putting beside it the World Bank report that just came out, actually stating that 6 million Nigerians are going to be pushed further into poverty. Yeah. That's adding to the one that we already have. Wow. Yes. Now, taking a look at this and considering the fact that if fuel subsidy removal actually takes place, fuel is going to go up from 165 naira per litre to over 300 naira per litre. Do you see this as being something that is going to actually come to fruition when the World Bank says 6 million people will be pushed into poverty? Do you really see this happening if the fuel subsidy removal actually takes effect?
There's always been a nexus between transportation and the price of food in the country. I mean, just fuel scarcity. A rumor of fuel scarcity can cause, you know, transport operators, the taxis and the keke napep, they can instantaneously hike their price, almost ×2 of the price. They've not removed subsidy. There's just a rumor that there's going to be, you know, fuel scarcity. This is not, you know, increment in price. And then you have, you know, traders that have to travel to villages through roads to get foodstuff, bring back these foodstuffs to the market and then sell to the final, you know, traders and then sell to us, the consumers. So there is a nexus, there's an entire, you know, chain of command that is going to be broken. And that's why I feel we are going to remove subsidy, no doubt, because I think we are one of the only, we are one of the only countries in the world
No, actually, there are quite a few countries that have,
that pay fuel subsidies.
That actually have subsidies on energy.
Yeah, but it is not a popular, economic policy to adopt anywhere in the world. If the IMF is pushing for the removal, if the World Bank has been, you know, harassing us to remove it over the years, it's obviously not a popular economic policy. So along the line, we are going to remove fuel subsidy. this is not the time. But even if you stubbornly insist on removing this fuel subsidy, you should think of something better to do with the money. You know, our educational system is broken. The police, if you go to some police stations, you think maybe you are in a shrine or something. There is absolutely no, you know, gadgets to aid with investigation, to aid with gathering of evidence. The entire thing is boggled. And then you see the guns are updated. You see pictures, embarrassing pictures of policemen wearing their guns. And these things, they lead to, you hear about accidental discharge and all of this, and put this money in other sectors.
All right, so we do have an excerpt from Gaza Yakubu's Agripreneur Show, where a lady is actually talking about how much it actually costs her to transport her fruits down to the market. So let's take a look at that video.
I come to the market to buy goods where I sell it. Fruit stuff. Well, the market we used to buy it normally. It's not more like before. Before, like watermelon, we used to buy it for set of it, which is dozen, 50 pieces. We used to buy it 25, 22, 18. Right now, it's not more like that. Increase it to 30, 31, 31, 32, 30. I used to sell it the base as I see it, buy it. If I buy 30K for 50 pieces, so the one of 1,000, I have to increase it 1, 2. The one of 800 before. The one of 800 before, I used to sell it 1,000. The one of 1,000, I used to sell it 1,500, 1,400. But before, it's normal. I used to park in the barrel to the roadside or to garage. Yeah, and I pick the drop. Before, I used to take the drop 2,000, but it's now 3,500. The problem is fuel problem. Because the more they increase money for fuel, the more driver increase their price.
All right, so now she's basically talking about, like I said earlier on, what it cost her. She talked about, you know, paying a drop 2,000 naira, and then now she has to pay 3,500 naira in order for her to move her own goods down to the market and sell it. So, of course, you know that in doing that, the cost of the goods itself has to increase because she does need to make her money back. And this is even before fuel subsidy removal. And right now it's standing at 165 naira, and that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money for a petty trader. And I was listening to, you know, the minister again saying, you may think that this 5,000 naira is small, but some women are actually going to use it to start businesses. And I was just laughing inside of me, like, what do these people take us for? Do they think we are fools? What is the price, or what is the value of the naira against the dollar currently? In the markets, you don't need to go to the parallel markets. Even the official, you know, CBN, you know, exchange rate. What is the exchange rate? You saw sadness in the face of that woman. She was not smiling because this has been hard on the traders, it's been hard on the consumers, and we make the bulk of the population. Most of us are not in government. Most of us are not holding, you know, political appointments or elective positions where we get allowances for simply breathing air early in the morning. And that is why I feel there's a disconnect. They don't care about, you know, people suffering. If you're coming up, I mean, the IMF can put pressure on you, obviously. The World Bank can put pressure on you as a government to remove subsidy. But you know your people, and you know what they're going through. And if you can tell the IMF, you tell the World Bank, you have been waiting all these years, you can still wait. Our people are already suffering. We do not need to put more hardship on them.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time, but let me just say this really quick. Like my guest did state, fuel subsidy does have to be removed at some point because that money needs to go to different sectors of the country. Now, but the problem is a lot of Nigerians are crying out because they're afraid that it's going to affect the cost of living. So we're going to ask the government to actually consider what the Nigerians are saying. All right, so we've come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Ms. Nata, for being a part of the show. And to all our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms. Look us up at Trust TV. You definitely find us there. Once again, my name is Chamunda Beng, and come back tomorrow for more Business Daily. Let's talk numbers.